Welcome to the Beach Stewardship Committee meeting today. Today is May 15th, and let's join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. And Ariana, could we have roll call, please?
Member Stevens?
Present.
Vice Chair Kurzman?
Present.
Chair Rothenberger?
Present.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Okay, the first thing we have on our agenda is a presentation. We have two presentations today. The first one is with Deborah Rothenberger, somebody I'm very familiar with. And she's going to speak to us about the Dune Savers that she started up earlier this year. And she's going to explain to us what we've been doing, what she's been doing with volunteers. And I would point out before she starts that we've got 300 volunteer hours so far since January. So it's been successful.
Well, thank you for that nice introduction.
Well,
when Dan says we, I will say he is my faithful companion and has put as much work into Dune Savers as I have. And thank you all for having me as a speaker today. And the purpose of my talk is to point out the importance of the native vegetation that's on the dunes. Well, if you're anything like me, I've gone to the beach for years and really not paid much attention to the vegetation on the dunes. And that all changed for me about 2 years ago, and I discovered there's a lot more to the dunes than just the sea oats that we might take pictures of at sunset. A friend through the Native Plant Society invited me to go to join a little group that she had in Treasure Island, and they've been doing this for years. She said, just come up and see what my group is doing. And they're pulling invasive plants out of the dunes. Well, I joined them, and it was an eye-opener for me. I had no idea there were so many native plants, but I also didn't realize the problem of invasive plants. In the first picture up there, that big pile of grass that you see is all non-native fountain grass that has invaded the dunes and can take over and crowd out even sea oats. But this group, we just followed the pattern that they had already set up because it worked so well, but they worked with the city, closely with the city, which we have done that with our group also. And IACO has been over the top supportive of this group and helping us get going. And also Mandy Edmonds and also Jeff and Ken, who also support us every week. They bring big totters for us to fill, then they come and pick them up, and we sincerely appreciate the support the city has given us in doing this. We also just meet once a week for 1 hour, so it's a very doable volunteer activity. We meet on Fridays. Currently, we're at Upland Beach from 8:30 to 9:30. We are doing something a little different than the group in Treasure Island. They only work November through May because a lot of their members go up north, but a lot of our members have said, let's keep going because we've seen what a big problem we have with the invasive plants in the dunes. Well, first, to understand what an invasive plant is, you need to understand what is a Florida native plant. And basically, those are plants that have been established here before European contact. And one reason they're so important, do so great, they have been here for thousands of years. They've adapted to our climate, our insects, our rainfall or lack of rainfall. And so they are what established well in our environment. These are some examples of some Florida native plants. Although generally our native plants are not showy, flowery plants, we do have a lot of native wildflowers, and they're beautiful. The arrangement you see on this picture is from a coastal native garden up in Treasure Island. And then also the purple flower you see is a Florida native plant. It's a host plant to several butterflies. Then, of course, we have our sea oats, our cabbage palms, and hundreds more native plants that can be used also in the landscape. Now, why are our coastal native plants so important? For many reasons. One, they are what stabilize and build our dunes. That is probably the most important thing to us right now. Is stabilizing and building our dunes. But they also provide habitat for our coastal and migratory birds, not just the food, but the type of grasses that we have in the dunes are what these birds are looking for when they're nesting, when they're eating. They are looking for the native plants that have been here for thousands of years, not some of these invasive plants that are popping up in the dunes. It's also important even for our sea turtles because the dunes, as they build, they also build more beach, and which is important for our sea turtles. These are a few examples of our coastal native vegetation that's so important, the sea oats and the way they work. When the wind blows and the sand hits the tall oats, it knocks the sand down, and that is what actually builds height in the dunes. We also have plants that grow along the surface, such as the railroad vine, which also helps to keep sand on the dunes. And there's a native scaevola, which is important because the sea oat roots tend to go straight down, and you have a plant like a scaevola whose roots are more horizontal, and then that helps form a net in the dunes and helping to hold sand together. And to see the amazing job that these plants can do in the dunes, the picture up on the left is back from 1985, so 40 years ago. This is just a group of volunteers from this area went and planted sea oats. And you can see that area. It is around 19th Avenue looking north. You can see the dawn up in the future, up in the northern part. But as you can see, it was perfectly flat. There was no dune there at all. And they planted sea oats. And now the same area is in the picture, and you can see after Idalia, it was not even damaged at all from the storm. And this is a very significant dune now. It's high, and it provides a lot of stability to the dune. Okay. Now, a problem that we have, in addition to all the problems that you all already know about with our dunes, are we have invasive plants. And basically, you can have non-native plants that aren't necessarily invasive yet. A lot of times we'll bring in non-native plants and we think that they're okay, and then we find out, no, they're not. But then there's also a naturalized species, non-native species, that becomes invasive. And what happens then is these plants start showing up in natural areas where no one has planted them, that they're so widespread and the seeds get spread, and that's how they start showing up in our dunes, in our mangroves. These are pictures of the worst offenders you're probably familiar with. Up in the left is a Brazilian pepper tree, and all those little red berries on there, the birds will eat, and then they poop them out all over the state, including in the dunes, in our mangroves, and in places where no one's going to be able to get to them to remove them. And they become huge trees, producing more berries, and it is a billion-dollar problem for the state of Florida. One of the other bad ones, especially in this area, is the carrotwood tree, and actually it's probably all over the state, but here it is a problem. We see both of these these trees in the dunes. Usually where we are, there's still seedlings, but there are places in the dunes where these are huge trees and are going to take some kind of mechanical equipment to remove them. But the carrotwood tree, that's one of those we didn't know it was invasive when we first started using it. When we moved here 30 years ago, it was in the city's Adopt-A-Tree program, and we planted 3 of them in our yard. And it wasn't until about 20 years ago that we found out, wow, these things are showing up all over the place. They're hugely invasive. They produce thousands of seeds. These are some more of the invasive plants that we found in the dunes. The fountain grass on the left, part of the problem there, you can buy that at the big box stores. And across the street from the dunes, people have this planted in their yards. Our landscape contractors still use it. And then also asparagus fern. That also grows in the dunes and is an invasive plant. And probably one of the worst is this mother of millions plant. This plant is so invasive in Australia, it's against the law to even own them. But what they do is all these little nubs on the plant will break off, and then they form these millions of babies on the sand, and it's just like a carpet, and no other plants can grow in this area. These are a few more of the invasives that you can buy this mother-in-law's tongue, but when these things are planted, they spread like crazy. You can see in the one picture, the mother-in-law's tongue is growing all up in the cootie. The cootie is a native plant. It's great for the dunes. This particular picture is not in the dune. It's in the, it's by the Bayway Bridge. But these things are sprouting up uncontrolled. Same thing with this other picture of the carrotwood tree. There's a little picture there of showing what a seedling looks like. These are a few more invasives, the cardboard palm, and that one's still available for purchase. And once you know what these plants are and you start looking for them, you will see these everywhere, and you will regret the day you plant a cardboard palm in your yard, because it also spreads and gets huge. One of the showy rattlebox is a wildflower. It is invasive, and it's called that the little seed pods rattle when you shake them, but they're full of thousands of seeds. This is also an example. The picture on the right is our native scaevola, which is excellent for the dunes. The one on the left is an invasive scaevola that gets huge and can take over large areas of the dune. Okay. It can be a simple decision. When you go to buy a plant, choose to plant a Florida native plant instead of an invasive plant. And it takes a little just educating yourself. You can go on the Florida Native Plant Society page and look a plant up. When you start to buy a plant, you know, Google it and see if it is a native plant or is it possibly an invasive plant. So I know that you're all asking, what can I do to help? What can the city do to help? Well, IACO's already put our information on the city website, which is great, and people can go on the website and see when we are meeting. But also, wherever you see these invasive plants in your yard, if you can remove them, or from your condo, your business, also city property. And I will tell you, there are a lot of these especially carrotwood trees on city property. There's also some Brazilian pepper in the dune, and we would like it if they would add money to the city budget specifically for removing invasive plants, and to have a proactive program to start removing these. We also ask that you do not buy these plants, don't allow the use of them, and that the city make a list of forbidden plants and have that in the city ordinance, that our contractors cannot use any of these plants in their projects, because there are landscape contractors who are still, they'll plant fountain grass all over the place, and then it's a problem for us to clean up. I have an example of the todders that Ken and Jeff bring out to us, and fill them up with fountain grass. Also spread the word, because I didn't know this 2 years ago, and I think a lot of people don't, and people go to Home Depot or Lowe's and see a lot of these grasses and things or invasive plants and buy them. So it's an education program. So, in summary, I would just like to say that if we don't have these coastal vegetation, that of course we won't have our dunes, which is going to cut down on our beach area, so our wildlife won't have a place, and people won't have a place, and there'll be a lot of sad people. And now you know why people call me Debbie Downer, because I feel like I'm gloom and doom. But thank you all very much for having me today. Thanks.
Thank you.
And I don't know if you have time for questions or if anyone has any questions, but thank you.
Chair, I just want to, I've, through my life, I've seen the work that you, Deb, you and your team do every Wednesday, and it's incredible. And everyone, if you know anybody that loves the beach, mention this group to see if they're willing to come out. And I also want to recognize our chair. He is a loyal member of that group every Friday morning, helping remove the bad plants. So I just wanted to recognize him as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a couple questions. So I know that down in Hasagro, there was a lot of concern about people walking on the dunes until the vegetation grew. Does the native stuff grow quick enough? And you're saying that if you stick to the natives and you pull all these invasives out, that will give you the thick coverage that we don't have to worry if people walk on it, versus if invasives take over, that would be so much worse? That's your point in this?
Well, you always want people to stay out of the dunes.
Yeah.
No matter what, because they're trampling plants. They'll trample like new plants that are shooting up. Yeah, up or south of the Paradise Grill, where that area is so sensitive, and nobody should be walking in those dunes ever.
What I was getting at, though, was you showed pictures where these invasives just really rooted in. And if our mission is to root in, I'm just being, not devil's advocate, but I'm just trying to understand. If these invasives really root in and our mission is to root in, just why are they bad?
Well, they're bad because, now some of them do take some digging to get out, but for the most part, they have shallow roots. Like those mother of millions, you can just pull those out left and right. So, no, they
That's the problem. You want deep.
Yeah, you want deep roots. Now, there's also the problem, though, things like Brazilian pepper, those things will really dig in, but they're a huge problem because they'll eventually be a monoculture. So then you will have nothing but Brazilian pepper.
And they'll die off.
That's,
time,
yeah, that's a problem, and it just spreads, and the state is doing all they can to eradicate it. So we need to just do our part here and, keep it out of our yards and out of our dunes, because the birds do spread that. And then it gets into, especially like in the mangrove islands, it's hugely bad for the environment.
And then the other thing is, people need to do this through your group. I know that I once witnessed some people actually just taking plants out of a ravine and then making, pulling them up and closing off part of the beach, trying to keep people out of an area of the beach by deliberately moving plants so they could then tape it off and say, oops, this is our area because it's now the dunes, and they were making a dune. I called it in and they were told to stop. But this organization is an organization. So you're doing it in conjunction with the city.
Right, we definitely work with the city. We let them know every week where we will be. And we also now have a sign that we put out. So it's official.
Right. You're not making dunes. You're going where there are dunes, and you're working where they want you to be.
Right. I think John is going to get into something later. IACO and Mandy Edmonds asked us to partner with the city and plant COs. And so we're going to support the city and do what we can. But yeah, I think John's going to talk about that later.
That's terrific. Very nice. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
So just to go on, and I've had a conversation with Jennifer on this, and Ayako and Mandy. I see people in the dunes every day, and they did add some signs down there in Paso Grill, which Deb said is a very sensitive area. In the picture that you showed back, I don't know how long ago was that, where they were doing the plantings, 1985. They actually put up a blue fence in that picture to keep people out of that planting area. And I know that there's pros and cons about putting a fence up or not, but literally every weekend, I'll just say every day I do a beach walk, I'm seeing people, I see footprints, right? That's what really shows it, especially in those newly planted areas. Could you maybe go back and see, what's the appetite of actually putting some barrier for a while to keep them out so they can establish? Because I agree, without dune plants, we lose sand, we lose the dune. Without dunes, we lose the beach, and as well as water comes up and gets onto property. So I think everyone can agree dunes good, and without dunes, we have sad people. So I don't know what's the appetite. And I'm not saying, hey, you put a fence everywhere, but in new dune plantings, like we did down in Paso Grill and actually up and Upland Beach, there's some places there. And you see, especially by the volleyball courts, if you go up there, there's just, you can see it every day. You see footprints. And then it'll rain, the footprints are gone, and then next weekend you see all these footprints. And there's a sign right there. And I wish, thank you. I wish signs changed human behaviors, but unfortunately they don't.
Well, what is it, do you think, that is motivating that behavior then? Is it, if the sign isn't working, what do you think is the reason they're doing it? Is it maybe the sign should say where the next crossover is? Like, why is it this? They're lazy, they don't know where to go?
This isn't them crossing over. This is them, like on the volleyball court. And if there's a dune right there, I think they're going up to get a better view of the sunset. This isn't even crossover. Crossovers are a whole nother conversation. We can have that. And I think we're going to have a crossover update later. But this is just basic. People are just walking up to get up high to get a good view, or kids going up to, they're climbing the mountain.
So maybe there's another spot that would be a good, I'm just trying to say, like, what's the reason they go there, and is there a way we could make it more attractive for them to go to somewhere, let them know where there's
If I could get into their heads, I could tell you, but
okay. All right.
Laziness, the most direct route. I'm not willing to walk around. It could be all kinds.
But there's plenty of other. The options are visible. They just choose that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and to John's point too, it's especially down Paso Grill, the slope there invites kids to run up because it's neat. People also put their chair loungers up against that too. It has nothing to do with the crossovers, and it just keeps chipping away at it.
So it has been, the complaint has come in about the people doing exactly that. And so if I'm out there, if I see them, I always address it. If we've told the sheriffs, the community police, when they're patrolling, to address it as well,
That's the,
we're aware of it. So if
Yeah.
we see them, we'll tell them.
is there another, when I saw the picture, they actually put barriers up in the past. And look at this beautiful green dune now, because they kept people out. It's just something I think the city should consider, is going back to what they've done in the past is.
And that
putting
may
up
be
barriers.
appropriate once all the renourishment is complete. I don't think they're going to do that now.
I-
when we go
yeah.
pending. But
And-
certainly,
but
once,
anytime you do replanting, while it's that very sensitive, period of time, keep people out of, it's like planting a brand-new garden. You don't let people go walk on your, planted brand-new garden.
At least maybe from the
Pretty
main traffic side.
Basic. And guide traffic.
At least maybe from the main traffic side
Yeah.
of the fence.
I appreciate what you do.
I appreciate.
Oh, definitely. And I know you can, once you start working, you see everything. You see people during, you can only do so much.
It's maddening.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on. Our next speaker, Lisa Wright. She is the founder, excuse me, and the CEO of Coastal Wildlife. I don't have my good glasses on. Coastal Wildlife and Advocacy Group. Lisa, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you very much for having me. That's a mouthful, I know. Perfect segue into my presentation. I'm coming to you guys with an idea and actually seeing it all over the coastal communities in the entire United States, actually. So I want to do a presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions or talk about it further and see what you think. I'll give you a little bit of background about myself. I've been in this area for over 40 years, originally born and raised in Pennsylvania. Went to Florida State and stayed. I've patrolled the beaches here on Treasure Island and St. Pete Beach for the past 13 years under several marine turtle permits. I'm currently the conservation chair for St. Pete Audubon. I have done bird stewardship for the black skimmers when they are now have an established colony here on St. Pete Beach, and they are protected. I've also volunteered as a wildlife rescuer, and have witnessed firsthand the effects of human impact on our wildlife. My primary mission is to work with local coastal communities, municipalities in Pinellas County to protect our coastal wildlife and to preserve the coastal habitat on which they depend. And I think the reason that it was suggested that I do a presentation is because Dune Savers is a volunteer organization, and maybe we can kind of utilize volunteers together, because I think we have the same mission in mind. My passion and commitment for protection of our coastal wildlife is in response to the growing concerns, again, the human impact of our coastal wildlife and loss of their habitat. Our beaches are more crowded than they have ever been. And I think that the purpose of the Beach Ambassador Program is to advocate, to educate, and keep people informed, and also be eyes on the beach. So I refer to as the Voluntary Beach Ambassador Program, or VBA for short. The VBA program is one of a multi-pronged approach, and it's basically taking an approach to further the mission to protect our city's biggest asset, which is our beach and its wildlife. We love our beach, we want to share its wonders, and we want people to understand what it takes to protect it. What's the purpose of a volunteer ambassador, beach ambassador program? Basically, to be a friendly face, to be identifiable on the beach, and educate beachgoers regarding beach rules, ordinances, things like sitting in the dunes. Basically, the bottom line is education, maybe talking to them about wildlife that exists, the fact that we are in sea turtle nesting season, that we have a black skimmer colony. And honestly, being a bird steward, there are people that have lived here and been residents for years and do not know what a black skimmer is. So people find it fascinating when you can provide them helpful information. What do volunteer beach ambassadors do? They make sure they are easily identifiable. Typically, what I've seen in all other communities is they wear the vest, the neon vest. I think it's going to be a less expensive alternative to t-shirts, although there can be t-shirts, maybe a name tag. But this is to be able to identify who is a beach ambassador and make them more approachable too. So for example, when we are beach bird stewards, we wear shirts that say, "Ask us about the birds." And it invites conversation. And so again, we want to be the friendly face. We want to interact with the public in a positive and friendly manner. And the idea is maybe to station volunteers at public accesses and then have them also walk the beach. Some of the other things that they can do is there is a ton of information regarding sea turtle nesting, but we can provide all kinds of information, brochures to the public and local, and also educate them about local businesses, where to go, what restaurant has the best sushi. So it can be beneficial too for the businesses, because a lot of people ask that, even as a bird steward, hey, where can I get the best hamburger, or whatever the case might be. But most importantly, we want to teach them about beach etiquette, namely leave no trace, keep our beaches clean, dark, flat. And my screen, I guess the
bottoms are chopping off.
Yeah, it's kind of cut off. So I'll just keep going. Volunteer beach ambassadors should be seen filling in holes, knocking down leftover sandcastles. And I say leftover because we don't want to go up while a child is building a sandcastle and knock it down. But it is a perfect opportunity to be able to walk up when you know they're packing up and leaving, to say, hey, this is why we're doing it, and use it as an educational opportunity. Also to pick up trash. So I've seen beach ambassadors that have little wagons with the little trash pickers and a sign that they're a beach ambassador. So again, they're very identifiable, and it's a friendly type interaction. More of what they do is, that's redundant. Basically, the same thing that the dune savers are doing, and that is to work together with the city. So if there is a problem on the beach, if we have, I've seen so many times, unleashed dogs, let alone dogs, the beach ambassadors will know who to call. If there is a nest hatching and it's disorienting, who do they call? What should they do? And educate the beach ambassadors to be able to also keep a log of the activity when they are on the beach, and then any issues will be put through the city if need be, if it's an ordinance situation. So this is actually a picture I took from one of the beach ambassador programs, and I thought it was really kind of cool because definitely she's identifiable. There is a sign that she has. So essentially, what does it take to be a beach ambassador? Obviously, to have a passion about protecting the beach and our wildlife, to have a positive attitude and a positive approach to protecting the beach, and also value beach tourism and know that we have a lot of tourists out there, and it's a perfect opportunity to educate. Most programs do require that you're over 21, or at least if you want to volunteer, if you are under 21, you go with another beach ambassador. There is mandatory training, which I think is important. I think that the beach ambassadors need to be educated about the beach ordinance, what the rules are, and again, who they need to contact in certain situations, what the protocol is. And obviously, if they're going to be out there in the heat, they must have stamina, mobility, and maturity. So this is just a simple flow chart, if you will, where it's going to start with the city. Code enforcement and public works may have to get involved. If there's, I know that after storms, sometimes the trash cans blow over and there's trash everywhere. And so, you know, it could be a simple call. And then IACO would be our point of contact, or however we would want it to flow. But Coastal Wildlife Advocacy would be the program manager. So we would get the volunteers. We would also do training in conjunction with maybe IACO or anybody else from the city, Public Works, whatever that looks like. And then we would manage the volunteers on a regular basis. The city, we would ask, the city would, like they've already done with the Dune Saver program, is put the VBA program on the website on how to get involved and what being involved means, and also maybe provide space for annual training and ongoing workshops. Again, I mentioned this earlier, Coastal Wildlife Advocacy Group would provide the volunteers. We would also provide training and managing of all of the volunteers. And we would basically have a schedule laid out, and that schedule we would know who's volunteering, who's where, and who and when. And then each volunteer would fill out some sort of log every time and keep track of what's going on out there so that we can keep a log and know if there's anything going on that needs further attention. Or I think that at the end of the day, to have a presence out there with somebody makes a big difference. I don't think signage works. And I know that from being a bird steward, again, with the black skimmers, when FWC is out there, the behavior of the people is totally different. So I think if we start having a presence on the beach, not law enforcement, but ambassadors to say, we're here, we care, and we want to make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. So, annual training, patrol beaches. I said March to October. I'm kind of coinciding it with nesting season for black skimmers and sea turtles. It doesn't have to be year-round. It doesn't have to be every day. I would say we would definitely need to do it on the weekends and certainly on the holidays. We would section out the beach. I said three sections. It could be 4. It could be 5. Whatever, you know, whatever seems to make sense and what the volunteers are willing to do. Also, communication among the volunteers, which I'm already doing as an organization, is there is signup.com, so we have everything on record of who's signing up and when. And Slack, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but that is a platform for organizations to have a community texting, so that if there's 40 volunteers and I have an announcement to make, I can make it and everybody gets it. So I don't have to make 40 phone calls or send, you know, emails. It just consolidates a lot of communication. And then, of course, logbooks. We would want them to have that. So the materials and equipment, vests, name tags, maybe wagons, signs, trash pickers, and brochures. Most of those are free. I know that the vests, I looked on Amazon, we can get probably 10 vests for $20. So, and I also know that some of the cities do like a membership. So if you want to be a beach ambassador, you pay $10 a year. So there's all kinds of ideas out there. In conclusion, the VBA program can be implemented with no or minimal cost to the city. The VBA program helps residents, tourists, and others understand how to protect our biggest asset, our beach and our coastal wildlife. The program boosts beach safety through awareness, education of our city's beach rules, and it sends the message that we care about our beach and its protection. I'm happy to answer any questions, thoughts, ideas.
I guess I've got a few questions. I mean, I love that you know, are thinking about all these things and you know, coming with ideas of how to protect the beach. Being an award-winning beach, I'm always nervous about change, and in some ways, I'm trying to think of the boundaries and the kinds of things that could they could be involved in. You know, whether some people might get too ambitious, you know, or what would they, you know, if they would be doing the interactions, or whether they would just call in. You know, you mentioned wisely about maturity. And, you know, you have some people that maybe may take things the wrong way. Like if they see someone eating from a styrofoam container, you know, and they're going to throw it away.
Right.
You know, do you go over and say anything? Or if they have a plastic straw, you know, but again, they might be throwing it away.
So that's
go ahead.
They have to attend. I think that the training will address all that. As far as behavior, your behavior, how you approach somebody, people need to understand, you know, there is a certain way to approach people, or etiquette, and I think that's going to be coming from training and continual workshops to say, you know, here's the guidelines, here's the parameters. You don't want to get involved or be confrontational. You know, we kind of learned that too with sea turtles and being a bird steward, where, you know, if there's a problem and someone is not responding or being aggressive in some way, then you call the emergency sheriff line. And obviously, if it's an emergency, you dial 911. But I see your point, and I think there has to be a defined protocol.
Or what are the boundaries? So I know you use as a good example, you're not going to go ask someone to fill in the hole when they're doing it.
Right.
You know, but keep an eye on it before they leave. But would the protocol be, if you see someone with styrofoam or straws, do you go over and say, make sure you throw it out, or you just leave them alone?
Oh, if they're sitting there eating and having a good time, I don't think there's any reason to approach them.
Right.
You know, it's going to be behavior like, if they're all packed up and they have a pile of trash, that's an opportunity to say, hey, you know, do you have a bag? Let's get a bag. I have a trash bag. Let's put all this in the trash, because we can't leave it here.
And then I wonder if there are their eyes and ears, if they see hotel chairs being way too far towards the water, do they call that in? Or if there's loud music, I don't even know if that's an ordinance violation yet, or if there's other ordinance violations that are for the quality, do they get involved?
That's a good point. I think that, I don't know if y'all have ever been out on the beach at night, but it's crazy out there.
I meant even during the day, but okay, at night too.
But yeah, I mean, so we have the artificial light, they're calling it transient light, which is lanterns that sometimes fishermen use, and also, which is like a beacon, you know, in the middle of of the beach, but also flashlights. So there's a lot of people on the beach with flashlights, and it's the white light. And it's extremely damaging and disorienting, not only to the hatchlings, but the female sea turtles. So again, it's an educational thing and having somebody out there. But to address the chairs, yeah, I think that if a resort has their chairs, which has happened this past Friday, where the umbrellas and everything were still in the ground, that should be reported on some level.
Okay.
That can go through IACO, and then she can, take it from there. And that will be the chain of command.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa, thanks for being here. I think this is a very interesting idea that the city should really think about. It has some similarity to what Sea Turtle Trackers is doing. They have a fleet of volunteers that they have their morning walks that go out right at sunrise to go and look for nests. Then they have they call it the whole patrol at night to do kind of similar things. So there's some synergies. There's a little overlap, and there's some synergies there. But and IACO is giving me details. There's a really good city partnership with them that the Sea Turtle Trackers will actually walk the beach and then report that the beach is clear, and then Operation Mandy's team will then go and start the raking and cleaning and trash, because you don't want somebody to drive over a fresh nest. So I think that there's some things that has already happened in the city that kind of support that kind of cooperation. And there's also another item on the agenda, I put it on Know the Code. And I know we have this, but having somebody there explain the code, stay off the dunes, flat, fill in the holes, knock down the sand castles like that, leave no trace. I think it's an interesting idea that should be pursued.
It's essential that ordinances are known, and maybe a little, handouts. I don't want handouts, but I'm thinking QR codes, because people have their phones, and so the QR code will actually just give them beach rules, just simple beach rules.
Know the code.
Know the code, right, and keep it simple. You can go crazy, and I actually met with Bruno, the marine turtle permit holder, and said, how can we work together?
Great.
And I haven't gotten an answer, so I don't know, but I know that I don't want this effort to just be centered around sea turtle activity. I think we need to broaden it.
Oh, absolutely. That wasn't the point. Yeah.
But yes, I would love to take some of those volunteers and that effort, absolutely, and work together.
And to John's point is, I think there needs to be a conversation with the city of where the boundary is of what they can be doing, should be doing.
Yes.
And unfortunately, this day and age, there are behavior of people. We might not want volunteers for certain items interacting with a tourist or, somebody on the beach just for their safety.
Yes.
I hate that I have to say that, but in this day and age, you have to.
Well,
But that doesn't mean that if they see something, they can say something for certain things, and then there's other things that they, like that. And Sea Turtle Trackers, my wife Nancy and I went to their training just a week or two ago, and they went through if it's a teachable moment and it's no threat, then you do that. If it's not teachable moment, then here's the phone number to call.
If I can say something also, you just pointed something out. It reminds me of where these people would even be allowed to walk. It sort of segues into some of the other topics we're talking about later, but, we have where we can walk up on the mean high water line, but are these people going to get accused of trespassing if they walk behind a hotel?
Well, I think the areas of concentration would be the public accesses.
Okay.
And, maybe fan out, but be, on the mean high water line.
Okay, so it
So
would be,
not go into or intrude on hotel guests. That's not good. That would not be what I think would be useful. And I've stressed that it has to be a friendly thing. It's, hey, we're just here to let you know, this is going on, or that's, I mean, it could be anything.
okay.
Not confrontational, not a negative approach or a slap on the hand. It can't, people don't respond well to that.
Right.
And it does become a safety issue, because if you have a group of teenagers and there's 20 of them and you upset one of them, there's no telling, it's not, I think there needs to be a certain approach, and I think there needs to be a certain protocol and guidelines to what is the issue and how should it be handled. So do I even approach this person? And as far as sandcastles, I've done that for years, where I will go up and I will, the kids will be, they built their sandcastle and now they're over here doing something else, and we make it fun.
Mm-hmm.
Let's, destroy the sandcastle. Let's jump on the sandcastle. But I usually, and it's usually beneficial to have a conversation with the parent, and then the parent's usually like, hey guys, come on over, kind of thing. So I think there has to be the right person. We can't have somebody out there that's a sergeant that's,
Right.
pointing all kinds of stuff out and taking a very assertive approach. I don't think that will work.
So again, it'll be more about boundaries again, about even where.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Otherwise, I don't think it would be.
Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thank you,
Great
guys.
potential, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good idea.
All right. We need to approve the agenda and
Minutes.
the minutes, but
Oh, yeah, agenda, right?
yeah,
I'm
we
sorry.
got to do that first. And I had mentioned earlier, I think because we're missing 2 people, would it not make sense to postpone picking the directors at the next meeting? Ariana, would that be?
That's entirely up to you guys as a board. If you want to do that, that's fine. I just need a motion.
What do you guys think?
I agree. I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I make a motion that we move the election of chair and vice chair to our next meeting.
I second that.
Good. All right.
Do we need a
You do
roll
a
call?
roll call?
Member Stevens,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kurzman,
Yes.
Chair Rothenberger,
Yes.
motion carries.
Now, as far as approving the agenda, do we have a motion to approve the May 15th agenda?
I'll move to approve the agenda as
Second.
published.
All right. Roll call?
Vice Chair Kurzman,
Yes.
Member Stevens,
Yes.
Chair Rothenberger,
Yes.
motion carries.
All right. Now we have audience comments. Anyone here to speak today, this morning?
I did receive one comment card, but it is on a specific agenda item for 5C.
I see. Okay.
Okay.
So we'll deal with that there. Okay. Next action item would be approval of the minutes for the February 21st meeting. You have a motion for that?
I'm sorry, I was looking at 5C. Can you repeat that, Chair?
That's all right. We need a motion to approve the minutes from the February 24th.
I have
21st.
no changes or
No changes.
like that.
So is that a motion to accept?
I make a motion to accept the meetings, the minutes, or approve the minutes.
I didn't have time to check the video, but with regard to what our agreement was for revising the for how we were going to come up with a plan for getting into the loop on documents, you know, and getting CC'd. I thought we were going to get some sort of proposed draft,
I think that might be on the agenda.
but was it,
Is that 5A?
yeah, but was it represented correctly here in the minutes? I guess I'm not prepared, so I'll just go with what was in the minutes.
Okay,
We're fine. I'll move to accept the minutes as is.
okay,
Second.
good. Roll call, please.
Member Stevens?
Yes.
Vice Chair Kurzman?
Yes.
Chair Rothenberger?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, and that gets us actually to Section 5, 5A, beach stewardship, receiving information for related things to their responsibilities. Ayako?
Well, I think, John, you wanted to say what you wanted to say about that, or?
Well, I guess it's just, we can go by what's in the minutes, but I think that there was going to be some activity by either staff or legal as to, you know, some work to be done of sending us something that had been done by another organization, or a draft of what makes sense for us then to look at and discuss.
Is Jennifer here? No, she's out there. I think she'd be the one to, can we just?
I was just looking for the minutes to see what it said in there, but that was my recollection of.
Yeah, and I think she has a date or information about that process, and
Because I think at one point they wanted to have a special meeting, and I was like, well, why have a special meeting if we can't just start with something that we...
If I recall, it was just if there was something that was going to go on the commission's agenda or talk about that, we just be informed. For example, there was a walkover that wasn't approved. There's beach renourishment that was approved or is now happening. That's just is there a way for us to get a CC, not a special meeting,
Right.
but a CC that, hey, that's going on, because that's directly involved with what we're responsible for. I think that was the spirit of the conversation. Am I remembering that right?
I think you are.
That's the way I remember it. I mean, and frankly, I mean, it's not like I'm looking for someone to do work for us, but I happen to look at all the city commission meetings if I'm not at them. But even if there's a presentation at a city commission meeting, as there was on the walkovers,
Right.
you know, let us know so that we at least keep up
Yep.
with the stuff that we're supposed to be responsible for.
Right.
I think that's a reasonable request.
Here's Jennifer.
Oh, here's Jennifer.
Jen?
It's all good.
Jennifer's
Now you could feel like I do at some of the city commission meetings where I walk in and, because I wasn't allowed in until the time. But anyway. You want to explain, or should I explain?
Go ahead, John.
We were just discussing the item of how we get in the loop on items and keep informed, where that we were trying to figure out whether we have a resolution or we go to the city commission, where either, I think it was you or Matt, or how we were
We
going to...
brought that up last night at the meeting, and I think you all will get a doodle schedule of figuring out when we would be talking about the beach ordinance, and we can bring that up with the commission at the same time.
This is not the ordinance, this is still the one about...
Resolution, but I think that's a discussion that you can have with the commission at that time to see if that's the direction.
Different topic.
Right.
We're talking about a different topic.
You want the resolution, like the Historic Preservation Board.
How do we get kept in the loop of certain beach-related items as they're going on in between our meetings? For example, beach walkovers being on the commission agenda to be approved, beach renourishment being approved by the county
Well,
like that.
some,
It's just is there a way or a process that could be put in place that we just, as the beach steward,
we can give you information.
Yes.
The county's going to do what the county's going to do. We don't have a say one way
Yeah,
or
but
the
it's-
other. So in that, we can provide the information, which I think is on the agenda to give an update on what's happening with that. Same kind of questions came with Historic Preservation Board. It took us 1.5 years to come up with that, to go to the commission 3 times before a resolution was done. And so it was a process of things that should go to you, that they agreed should go to you. When it becomes a maintenance issue or things that you have to do and we can't wait 2 months to come to you before we do things, that is not realistic. So that is what we went through with the Historic Preservation Board as well. And so we did a resolution with them. That, if that's what you're looking for, and I think Matthew has explained this, that is the direction we would go to, is we would have these discussions on what you want. It goes to commission, whether they feel this is yes, yes, no, yes, all of it great, you know, and then they pass a resolution, and that gives the guidance. And it codifies for the city, no matter who's here, what comes to you all. And that's the process we just went through with the Historic Preservation Board.
I think this is getting maybe more complex than we're trying to accomplish. We're not trying to get in the middle of a flow of information to block it. What we were trying to do, I believe, as we discussed at the prior 2 meetings over the last 6 months, is make it that we are kept up to date on things that are occurring, so that if we choose to have an emergency meeting, we can, and not have to wait till the next meeting. So that, for instance, and this is just an example, there was something that was presented at a city commission meeting that was directly about the beach. And so it would be useful if the people in the Beach Stewardship Committee were notified that that was occurring. You know, it would normally just be, maybe almost considered a courtesy to say, hey, they're doing a presentation on beach nourishment at the city commission. There's only 2 things Beach Stewardship Committee is responsible for: beach nourishment and beach protection. And since one of them is being presented at the city commission meeting, you might want to know about that. So since that doesn't occur, I'm just trying to come up with a process for that. I knew about it, but not necessarily the other people did. And so what I'm trying to do is get a procedure so that everyone on the beach committee knows about it.
IACOs also didn't know about it.
I'm sorry?
IACO also didn't know about
Well, I'm
it.
not blaming her.
No, but I'm just saying.
I'm saying we need a
that-
procedure so she
I'm
does.
just saying that there are multiple people involved in the city, right? So if everybody's on board, that's fantastic. IACO's on board, IACO's going to keep you in the loop. But if IACO is not aware of it, how is she going to keep you aware of it?
Exactly.
That's something internally we would have to work on, John. I don't think it's something that needs to be put in a resolution.
I'm not saying it needs a resolution. I'm asking, how do we make it happen?
It's communication. And and who appointed you makes you in the loop, like, hey, this is on the agenda.
What?
Who put you on this board? They should be informing you if something's coming to them, asking you for your advice.
Nobody told them that either.
No, we have told them that multiple times. So,
They've only been appointed, you know, in January. And I don't know that they've had a class on when they're supposed to be notifying each committee person on.
I think it was discussed last night to make sure that their members are involved in things. So,
I don't know.
I don't know what
that.
answer you want.
We're trying.
What do you want?
We're trying to have a discussion.
Right.
As to what the process might be, so that when matters that would be relevant to the committee members are either going to be discussed at the city commission or coming to the city commission, that the Beach Stewardship Committee is
I will
made
send an
aware of
email
it.
out to the whole city that if anything is involved in the beach, that they let IACO know and she keeps you all informed.
That would be ideal. That might be the answer to this whole thing.
I mean, because at this point, what you're specifically talking about, she didn't even know about until it was on the agenda and discussed.
That's really all we've been trying to accomplish, is that we're in the loop to know. And then the other side of that would be, we need to be able to know, and maybe it gets into the finer details, things like conditional use, that was the beach nourishment side, but beach protection, there it gets into interpretation a little bit, where, when there's a conditional use application and you're going to add, hundreds of people to the beach, for instance, beach stewardship might want to be involved and think about, making recommendations, but we can do it on our own.
Are a quasi-judicial process that's already set. We talked to this with the Historic Preservation Board that had that same request. It is not to go to all different boards to get their opinion. It is set by ordinance how a conditional use permit is done. And Matthew explained this in the Historic Preservation Board to change that process in a quasi-judicial hearing. And that process is not going to change. The process that's set in place is how it is. Now, if that's what you want to change, talk to your commissioner to try to make changes to the process, but that's what's already set in place to get a permit. We're not going to go to multiple boards. Historic Preservation Board made that same request. If you're making that request, the Library Board can make that request. Parks and Recs might want to see the landscape design. Where does it stop?
Again, it's not necessary to be part of the approval process, just to be made aware that it's occurring so that we might be able to provide input should we choose to. It's not changing it.
And I think if I may.
Please.
I don't think we're asking to insert ourselves in the decision-making process. Maybe that's where I might be a little bit different than
Right.
John here. It's just, as you are aware of something going on, please let us know. And then my request is, how do we make sure that she's included? And I think your email might solve that. So we just have more visibility it's going on, that we might choose to call our member or our commissioner that appointed us
Yep,
to
I agree.
have some input. So that's
We're agreeing.
And then
That's easy enough.
for the conditional use permit, I would, and I put it on, and I know Brandon, he's going to show up later today. What are the standards? I think we should have a conversation as if a conditional use permit is going to be done, is there a standard set that everyone needs to follow that's consistent, and is that standard up to date? So when it does go through the continued use permit process, that there is a standard of what needs to be done to the beach for their development stands that way. I think that's a reasonable ask to make sure we realize what is going to be asked and approved for beach for every condition use. Does that make sense? Maybe I spoke in a circle there, but.
Yes, in a way. I don't know about standards per se, but our comp plan addresses what needs to happen on the beach and easements and things of that nature. And
It's really more dune, right? And I think later, number K, Brandon's going to come and speak to us, is what are the requirements of a CUP for dune restoration when it's required for a CUP. That I put that on. I just wanted to know, for these developments, what are we having them do? And is that standard across all of them?
the standard is the DEP. It's not the city of St. Pete Beach.
Okay, so they're setting the standard.
They're setting the standards. It all would go through them to begin with, so.
But back to getting off of CUPs, it's as she can keep us.
I would love
up to date.
to have her know everything that's happening on the beach as well as you. So when I sit back down, I have my laptop with me, I will send that email before in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And I know that's, things are going to slip by, and that's, this is a city organization, and there's lots of hands moving. But
Yeah.
as the beach manager, I would hope you'd want to know everything that's going on the beach as well.
Yes, so when you asked me, did I know about the beach renourishment plans, and I said to you, I hadn't heard anything, because I legitimately hadn't heard anything. It was the first that I heard from the grapevine,
Yeah.
yourself and others, and
Were you the one that told me about? Somebody told me about beach renourishment.
I found out at a chamber meeting
Oh,
because someone asked me, because it was on the news that morning, and I didn't know anything about it. So I contacted the county, and that's how I found out.
Yeah, so I think DPW has a lot of the information, and I think if we can get on their mailing list, that will probably help us a
Sure.
lot.
Happy to.
So, thank you. I think that one's
Jennifer.
resolved.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right, while I did invite, for example, Brandon Berry and Mike Clark has given me information, just letting you know, via email, he's not able to be here. And I believe Brandon isn't going to be able to be here either. I think Jennifer was going to speak on his behalf as well. Any questions you had? So,
We get to that.
moving forward.
Okay.
Okay, 5B, beach deeds and public right to the beach.
This is an item that I had requested. I had requested the surveys previously obtained by the special project that the city had had. Jennifer had it done, I believe, and Alex Ray, where they got a lot of the surveys and they were in an application. I ended up doing a FOIA request to get those, and I did look through them. They are just surveys. I then, though, went to the Pinellas Tax Assessor site, where I was then able to download some deeds. I happened to look at the deed, for instance, for one of the trade wind locations, because it was part of their CUP, and then it wasn't part of their CUP. And on that one, for instance, it did have the language that I was looking for. And that language was that it excluded in their ownership rights, that it recognized that the public had access to the beach. So it said, that this ownership, very nice. It had ownership of the, it recognized ownership of the beach. And that's similar to, for instance, a deed that was in the back of one of the Cabana applications from another hotel, where they said, this deed says, recognizes that the public has rights to use the beach. Similar that Duke Energy has rights to run power and cable has rights to do what they do. The public has rights to use the beach. But it's not on the surveys. It's only on these deeds, and you have to look at the deed. And so the reason, why is that important? It's important because there's this question of customary use that keeps coming up. There was a law that said you can't make a positive affirmative defense, or you can't do ordinances after a certain date that preserve customary use, but it doesn't take away customary use. It just says you can't create ordinances. It's like saying you can't create an ordinance that says you have a right to free speech. It doesn't take the right of free speech away. It just says you can't create an ordinance that reaffirms it. So customary use has not gone away. And I raise that point because it gets relevant when you start talking about fees. It gets and it gets relevant when you start. And the reason I got involved with it was when people started saying, we should make people take their chairs in at night. I'm like, well, are you going to make me take my chairs off my pool at night? And I want to understand, do these people really, have full rights to what's on their property and that sort of thing. So, and we hear stories of people being told that they can't go on the beach. So I think it's important to understand when someone's being told, get off the beach, do they have a right to be on the beach? So when I heard that we had a company that was an expert and had access to all sorts of historical deeds and surveys when they were doing their allocation of money or allocation of contracts at the beginning of the fiscal year, calendar year, there was a company that was an expert in that, and I was thinking that we might want to ask that company to collect all those deeds. But now that I've since found how easy it is to get it off the Pinellas County site, I would probably do that first before I even found which ones were missing. And then I guess the other part was be understanding what the city would do with that information. Because so far, I'm not quite sure how it's really being treated. Even where we do know that the public has the access, I'm not quite sure, how customary use is being interpreted. But, I'll look for other input, or I'll just put it out there and just say that for public deeds and public right to the beach, there is, I think we need to preserve the customer use as it is. I'm not quite sure where the case law is right now. There were cases up in, at the Panhandle on the actual ordinances. I think it's important that we preserve, the public's right to traverse the beach. I think it's important that the hotels are able to maintain the decorum on the beach, and that the balance we have of that occurring, and they may maintain the beach and do what they do, is important also. But we all also have to share the beach and all be reasonable. So I don't want to open a can of worms either, but that was what that item was about, was just getting those deeds and at least making sure we all recognize or find the documentation if we need to. So I guess I'm going to withdraw the request to spend the money right now,
Okay.
given that we could do the research.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Sure.
Okay, item C, fees and permits for businesses and construction on the beach.
That one came about because a couple of reasons. Seems like, and this was at the Tradewinds meeting, the CUP meeting, there was discussions of what kind of permits were out there for the zip line, the slide, other things. I had already started looking into it a while earlier, and I seem to recall being told early on that for the zip line, for instance, that there was only a DEP permit that was necessary. And then during the meeting, there was mention that there was a BTR, which seemed to comfort the city commissioners at the time. But a BTR is a business tax receipt, which means that you have a license to run a business for the year. It's a fee of $20 or $60 or whatever for the year. And it has nothing to do with a permission to build something. Of course, it may be a temporary structure. And I'm not saying that I have conclusion on this, because I'm still battling back and forth on my FOIA request to even get this information. Most recently, I was told I need to pay a fee for my request to get the BTRs and permits for the BTRs and permits between Upham and the county park. But what I'm trying to understand is, are we really giving away way too much? And at a time when we're talking about the bed tax going towards Tropicana Field and other things, where later on, when we need money for beach renourishment again, will there be any money left in the fund? So do we need to start thinking about, are we going to have enough money to preserve the beach when we need it? You go to a hotel and you pay a resort fee. Could be $18, $20 a night per room, or maybe it's even per person. It's been a while since I've stayed in the local hotel here. And when I got the BTRs, because one time I did get the BTRs, the business tax receipt, one hotel, one property, for all of the cabanas, pays $60 a year. Not per chair, not per day. $60 per year for all of the chairs. That was what goes to the city. So, I mean, they make that on 2 chairs in the day. And the city gets that for the year, for all the chairs on the lot. And of course, if it's 5 lots put together, maybe it's going to be $60 for all of them. So when I look at that, I'm going, so what should the city be getting? Now, should it, maybe it should be a condition at the time of conditional use that you would try to introduce something like that. Other people have said to me now, it should be done in an ordinance. I think it's harder to do it in an ordinance than a conditional use, but, at some stage, the question is, should the city be trying to put some fees in somewhere, or, and again, is it because, who owns it, or what is it? Or am I wrong? I'm just saying, should there be some sort of rainy day fund being created to protect the beach to make sure that the beach survives if there's a problem. You know, this is not, I'm not just saying, hey, let's just tax for the sake of taxing. I'm saying, should there be a way to make sure that we have money to preserve the beach? As you know, this is not about the beds. This is about the money that's actually being, you know, for the beach. So, and maybe I'm wrong about what's really being paid, but so far the only information I got was the BTR, and it only came about because of this permitting thing, and you know, I'm also wondering about the permits because, you know, then the zip line just moved, and I'm wondering, like, so can, you know, from what I can tell, I guess everyone can put a zip line behind their house because you don't need a permit. You only need a DEP permit, you know, and now can all the hotels just put anything anywhere they want on the beach as long as they get the DEP permit? And so is this going to happen everywhere? You know, or do we need to make sure in our ordinances we start making sure that we don't, you know, don't put them everywhere? And, you know, I originally was thinking that, you know, as long as we carved out, you know, volleyball nets and, you know, courts and zip lines and slides from the amount of space a hotel took, to say, okay, this is how much space you're taking, you know, whether you use it for cabanas or yourself or whatever is fine. You have this much space, you know, use it as you see fit, we're fine. But now when I see a hotel adding 600 rooms, and if they fill it with slides and other things, all those people are just going to go elsewhere on the beach. And then that's not, then we're still going to have a problem, because then the other parts of the beach and the other hotels are going to go, hey, but now all those people went to the county park, and now all those county park people are going to go over here, and the beach is going to have an overcrowding problem. So that solution that I thought we had for our ordinance before isn't going to work, because now you can't just say, yeah, you can fill the beach with everything else, and you don't have enough cabanas for everybody in your hotel, because you really do have to have enough room for all your guests, because your guests are otherwise going to start overflowing to the other parts of the beach. So so this is where the fees and permits for the business and construction of the beach come up. How much construction do you allow behind the beach, behind the hotels? You know, maybe it's an ordinance question. It's basically just to make sure that everything stays sort of behind the property, and the people stay behind the property in a way that's fair to the neighboring properties. That's my purpose in raising the issue.
Okay, you raise the issue.
All right.
I would just say, I don't know if that's the domain of this committee for some of that. I think fees and permits and all that, and where we're at is, and Jennifer, and I know Matthew's not here, but Jennifer, I don't know if, I can't see her. I don't know if you know, the line between what's in an ordinance and what's in a CUP, that's not set by us, but I do believe that we have input into the beach ordinance, and I know that's going to be talked about next, and we're going to go through that, where we can have that conversation again. I believe there's going to be a workshop of what goes in a beach ordinance and what's going in a CUP. But a CUP, I don't believe, and we just had the conversation, is the boundaries of this committee. Now, we can talk to our members about that, but I just don't, you know, in our mission of protection, you know, dune protection and maintenance and renourishment, short of the beach.
Well, no, we're not just dune protection, we're beach protection.
Yes,
So this-
but who does a volleyball court where and all of that, which should be in a beach ordinance or in a CUP, and I don't know if we have domain of a CUP. So I do believe we have it in a beach ordinance, and we're going to have that process coming up soon.
Right.
And we should be vocal in that.
Well, right, so that's why, you know, yeah, that's why I'm raising it, because we have to think about what we want to accomplish. I mean, the ordinance itself is the logistics of, you know, writing it down, but what we have to figure out is what's the direction? What do we want to accomplish? Like,
And as you'll prepare for that workshop, we'll all prepare, the commissioners will prepare, and we'll have that discussion there.
so anyway, I think that maybe it's just some food for thought. do we, maybe we need to figure out some fees or permits or something to protect the beach? Because one of the ways to protect the beach might be to have some sort of nest egg, maybe. I don't know. I'll just throw it out there. Excellent.
I do have a public comment on this. I don't know if you're ready to hear that. I have Linda Borgia.
Hi, Linda.
Hi, Linda.
Borgia, 7100 Sunset Way. I am a member of the Library Advisory Board, but I'm representing myself, and I am a former member of the Beach Stewardship Committee.
Oh.
Thank you for being a library board meeting, or member.
I live at the very north end of Upham Beach in Envoy Point. My husband is one of the people that takes care of the beach garden back there.
The secret garden?
Secret garden.
Yeah.
It's no longer a secret. It's all over TikTok and everywhere else, and that's part of the problem. A lot of the businesses, it ties into what you're saying, and I was hoping you could look at this for the beach stewardship rules. They're making lots of money off of our little section of the beach down there. There's a lot of happy occasions that happen down there. We have weddings, we have proposals, we have baby reveals, we have family pictures. It's constant, and it's all the time on the weekend, but every day. There was a nice little family photo session Monday night that was beautiful. IACO keeps me informed of the wedding permits so we can be prepared, but people will pop up. So we had a weekend 2 weeks ago, May 4th, where we had 2 weddings, 2 proposals, and a photography school that comes out probably 3 or 4 times a year, and they had 30 people with them. And you can see here that they set up a tent. They had photographers. Over here you have a proposal going on. There was, like I said, 2 other weddings. Another wedding moved, and none of those weddings were permitted. But they set up tents, they set up changing rooms, they're occupying the entire beach. This was one of the weddings that went on here. And you can just see how spread out. There's the other wedding over there, and they just spread out. But these people bring alcohol to the beach, glass to the beach. Several of them, lately it's been tiki torches. We had a proposal that weekend where they set off fireworks when the girl said yes. And the tiki torches really concern me because they come up quite often lately. It's been a routine, and IACO checked with the fire marshal, and they're not considered an open flame, but we have kids running around out on the beach all over, and they run into things, and it's a little bit of a scare. There's another proposal. This was a dinner that was set up last week. This was before they set up their 30 tiki torches. And this is the walkway out of our thing. So you can see that they blocked off the walkway to occupy. And this group, there's their whole setup. That's what they brought with them. So, and this is a commercial company that is setting up a venue for them at cost to them, but they pay nothing because they didn't get a permit from the city. They pay nothing to use the beach, and they bring in things that are not legal. So that is our concern. There's so many happy things that go on out there that don't infringe on other people's rights, that are respectful of the beach. People clean up, but then we have more and more of these, and it seems like the level of proposals or different things are increasing to the point where it's like the Bachelor finale type of thing. So I just want to make you aware of it and ask that you look at restricting some of these type of things and maybe set up a permit system. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Linda.
Ayako, what would you want someone to do when they saw something like that occur?
So Linda did contact me that weekend. That she said there were 2 proposals, 2 weddings going on. I actually only permitted 1 wedding out of those. So it is based on honesty. I mean, they know that there's a wedding permit process in place. They should contact me. I permit the wedding. They pay the fee. But if nobody reaches out to me, I'm not standing out on the beach to watch that, to notice that that's why I let Linda know. I've only permitted one this weekend and there's 3 going on, then, that's an issue. And as far as the picnics going on there, we have picnics going on all along the beach. This is part of the problem with picnics, yoga classes, any kind of solicitation fitness classes going on the beach, right? That at this point in time, until the beach ordinance is...
I mean, the case of alcohol, though, looks like a pretty overt.
Yeah, so I suggested contact the sheriff's department, and I hope they came out. Linda, did they? They did, and they handled that.
And what was their response? Did they make them remove the alcohol?
They asked them to remove it, and they did take the wagon, fill it back up, and walk it back out.
Okay.
That in itself may stop a lot of that whole, I mean, for next time, because who wants to do their wedding without alcohol?
I think in the new beach ordinance, and Jennifer's not here to keep me honest, but you might from your past, that commercial, and there's a letter G here is commercial operations.
Mm-hmm.
We discuss in that the draft and the proposed beach ordinances, commercial operations, what needs to be permitted. But I think also in that workshop, we need to discuss enforcement and code enforcement, and what could we be doing differently to drive more enforcement in that. So it's one thing to set rules, it's another one to make sure they're being enforced.
No, that's true. And that's always been...
Like a sign, you can put a sign up, but no one's going to enforce it. People are going to follow the
Correct.
sign. So we have to think about enforcement when we have the conversation about the beach ordinance, which I do know that the drafts I've seen has different types of commercial operations requiring permits. And if it's on private property, permission of the owners of that private property before a permit would be given. So I do know that's in discussions now and in being considered for the new beach ordinance. And if anyone's interested in that, please show up for the conversation about the new beach ordinance, the updated beach ordinance that's being worked on.
All right. Item D, sargassum threat to St. Pete Beach.
I put this one on there too because I've been reading about the millions of dollars that it's cost some beaches. For courtesy, do we want to do him while he's
You
here?
want to move Brandon up?
Yeah.
Do you want to do Brandon while he's here? Or?
Brandon, have you got time? Okay.
Before you start, I just wanted to congratulate you on Employee of the Quarter.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That he received last night. Great job.
Appreciate that.
All of my interactions with you have been fantastic, and keep up everything you're doing for our wonderful city and beach.
Thank you.
So his
Okay.
Move to item K.
We're letter K. I think I added this one on, and you might have been here when it came up before. It's just understanding when the commission approves a conditional use permit, what are the standards and what are the things we're asking or making a development do to improve the dune system. And then, I don't know if you could answer this, what will be done to make sure that they don't destroy the beautiful, the dune restoration that they do?
So we have fairly limited references in our code to dune restoration. There is a reference in the comprehensive plan for the new developments that they need to restore the dunes. They need to install a dune where there isn't one present currently. Both of the conditional use permits that were approved recently will need to do that as part of their development. In terms of maintenance and the standards for the dune itself, that's all handled through the FDEP. They have administrative requirements for those dunes. Once the dune is approved, once FDEP is signed off on its development, it goes into the maintenance phase, and they do have to recertify with that every single year. If there's a storm that wipes out part of the dune, they need to have a plan in place within, I believe it's 2 weeks. afterward to begin the restoration of that dune. So that is handled, it's just handled by the state, it's not through the city.
Does that happen at the CCCL line seaward, or does that happen? Where does the state, my guess is the state does it at the CCCL line and what they need to do, and then the city, if anything, would be landward or east, in our case, east of that.
That's my understanding. I know that both of the recent projects, at least, the dunes will be restored seaward of the CCCL.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no, at least in our code, maybe it's a Florida Department of Environmental Protection to learn what are they going to make them do. I've heard, they're going to have to put up an 8-foot dune. Well, if they put up an 8-foot dune, then they're going to have to do a walkover to get over the 8-foot dune, where people are going to walk over and then get rid of the dune.
Right, the designs.
Any guidance that?
I don't know all of their technical standards. That's something I could definitely pull and send off to you. In terms of the new dune designs for the two projects I mentioned, it's a mixture. There are some walkovers. One, I believe, has a cut through. There was a renovation recently behind the Breckenridge where they're doing a planting plan with limited grading, so that will form the rear portion of the dune, and there might be some restoration in front of it. We haven't seen a final plan for that yet, so I'm not sure of all the details, but it will go to the FDEP, and I can pull those technical standards to send off to you.
When you have a chance. So it'd just be interesting, because this is one of the few times that we can insert, through a CUP, right, which like that, but from a beach, when I was getting at before, making sure, is there an opportunity for us as a city to add standards and make sure that they keep those standards up to keep that dune in place? Because as we discussed at the very beginning of this, dunes keep sand, sand keep beaches, happy people, not sad people. You missed that earlier today, but whatever we can do to encourage that dune development is a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, typically, like with anything else with FEMA and other standards, it's usually the state adopts the minimum standard, and in some cases it's encouraged for cities to adopt higher standards. We could take a look into that.
I got a couple questions, and if I deviate too much from the agenda, just feel free to stop me. First of all, congratulations on your award yesterday. You certainly deserve it. I just was looking at each people on all the committees and noticed you're the liaison for multiple committees, not even just the planning board. I was very impressed. Okay. So I don't know how you have enough time in your day to do everything. The beach walk goes along the CCCL, as I understand it.
Correct.
Yet that's also where the dunes are. So how do those two reconcile?
Well, for one of the projects, the dunes would be restored. For the Serrata project, where there would be the full restoration, that would be seaward of the dune, the beach walk. It hasn't been designed. There's been nothing permitted yet. We haven't even been given the notice to proceed on it. So that's something that needs to be dealt with at that point in time. With the other project, with the trade winds, again, it's at a very conceptual stage at this point. It's just something that was added on to the plan as a reference. It may waver in and out of the coastal construction control line. It's just not clear at this point.
Well, I'm trying to picture it, because I was just at the PCI meeting, for instance, and so I'm just trying to picture, like, if we would want to have the beach walk go all the way to PCI, because there you have like the volleyball, and I mean, I have to think that part of the vision might have been to have it go all the way to PCI, but then you're just dumping people over at Silver Sands, although that's actually where the access way is. That's where the biggest access way used to be, so that probably was the vision. But then I'm thinking, so is that, I'm trying to envision where that beach walk would be in relation to the dunes, and would it be then meandering across? I'm trying to picture how the dunes and the walk,
right?
What this comp plan was even thinking.
I understand. We'll have a conceptual plan to take to the city commission if this is something that the FDEP even allows to move forward. This is a very early stage. It was just really the purpose of the conditions in the development approvals were to make sure that we had those easements secured if this is something that moved forward. We just need to make sure that we're not retroactively trying to obtain easements. We wanted to have those moving forward when the conversation begins.
And then I was reading something somewhere that mentioned that periodically we can, the CCCL is supposed to be revised. And I was hearing that one of the issues, for instance, with getting these easements was that the CCL runs through like the pool of like one of the properties. Is there any, I don't know when the schedule is, is there any way that we could get the CCL to move so it wouldn't be going through a pool so that maybe then we could get the Army Corps to be more cooperative?
Well, the city used to actually have a stricter coastal construction control line. I think that lasted until the mid-2000s. The current line is the state line. It can only be changed by the state. We could potentially have them comment on that, but it's maintained by them.
And this is the one that I'm not sure, is it, you know, and this really might not even be in your area, but we do all this beach filling, you know, renourishment, we bring sand in, but when it comes time to raise a seawall on the other side of the island, they say that we're not allowed to backfill because it's filling a flood zone. But we fill on the other side of the island, so how is it we can bring in dirt or fill on one side of the island but not the other? Because it certainly makes it harder to be resilient if you can only fill one side.
Well, partial fill may be permitted. I'm not sure offhand, but I do know that fill is typically prohibited in the V zone, which is most of the large resort districts, but you know, it's the back half of most properties. The limited amount of fill is allowed for drainage and landscaping, but that it goes through a more intense process than we would see elsewhere in the city.
So you can do it, it's just more.
No structural fill, but it can be used for landscaping and drainage, limited drainage.
Okay.
Purpose.
You can do it.
Who sets who say no fill behind a seawall? Is that the DEP or is that the city?
It's based on the flood zone, and that's a national standard.
So
It seems to come and go, but it's just sort of like, yeah, it's not clear. It's not clear that you can't do it, but sometimes it gets thrown around, and that's why I'm sort of asking.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you.
Good, yep.
Great work.
Okay, let's go back to the sargassum issue, number D.
So I've heard that it's millions of dollars to remove sargassum. There's been other techniques to try to enclose it. I did read recently, I guess it was the city commission meeting for yesterday, that they have an emergency company to take care of certain emergencies. I don't know, maybe if this was one of them, but I was just wondering if we have an action plan if the sargassum hits this beach, because it, you know, obviously would destroy this economy and this beach. It, you know, makes the beach unusable and smells horrible and is overwhelming and kills the aquatic life and is, you know, devastating. So when it comes, it can't be stopped, really.
So my understanding is sargassum, I think it affects the east coast of Florida, obviously more than it does come into the Gulf, fortunately
Knock on
protected.
wood.
But there is the potential for it to come here. And unless it's really overwhelming, you know, I think we can make the similarity to red tide, right? Depositing on our beach. If it becomes so overbearing and smells, etc., you know, we do clean it up and remove it. But my understanding is we try to leave things as natural as possible. It is actually a source of nutrition and food for birds and things like that if it's a little bit on the beach and doesn't start rotting. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to beach cleanups, nothing is picked up that is of natural state. Only trash is picked up. But if there's wood, if there's, you know, seaweed and stuff, all of that is left to decay naturally or whatever. Yeah.
I mean, hotels or whatever are welcome to rake up that wood or whatever themselves, though, if they wish.
That's raking with a raking mechanical equipment?
Not mechanically.
Okay, if they want to pick it up by hand, yeah.
The rack line is protected.
True.
So, is that correct, Lisa? It's a source of food for birds and stuff like that, so we try to leave everything.
It's for a lot of things, protection. There's a lot of there's a lot of food there. And it's naturally occurring.
So I just want to, and the city did an exemplary job when there was the red tide.
Right. So I don't think there's a formal plan in place, but I mean, if it becomes overbearing, like I would say like the red tide does, then we have to go pick it up, yeah.
Right.
I think.
Okay.
Otherwise, it just becomes unpleasant for anybody that goes to the beach, right? Yeah.
Thanks, Ayako.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, item E, beach ordinance status update.
Is Jennifer here?
Do we have Jennifer?
No, she stepped out again.
Okay. And did I understand that Mike is not going to be here?
Yeah.
That's correct. So
But
we'll,
I have an update from him by an
Okay.
email.
and we got the, and
Want to
that,
just
Jen-
skip E, F till Jennifer's back and then go to G right now?
that sounds like a good idea. Commercial operations on the beach.
Yeah.
I think it's I did not add it, but I think it's very similar to fees and permits and
Mhm.
businesses. I think
Well,
it's the
It
same.
was actually submitted by Member Welch, and it was specifically regarding the Zamora and their cabanas on the beach. You know, Zamora doesn't actually have beach access, right? However, they do supply cabanas to their guests, and they're walking over private property and placing a few umbrellas under the beach for their guests. I did speak with Edwin, the cabana person, the other day on the beach and asked him what the arrangement was. And I believe the Zamora has reached some sort of agreement with the property owner that allows them to walk through their property and put a few cabanas. It's a very restricted, small area that they can put their cabanas out there, but
First I'll say I'm conflicted. I'm on the board of the Don Cesar Property Owner Corporation, who actually owns that property, and we're not voting. I think it should be covered in the greater beach ordinances about permits and uses, and if it's on private property, the property owner needs to give permission of that commercial activity on private property. I know that
is there no agreement?
there is no agreement.
they're
There's a
just-
legal matter
Okay.
in process that I'm not going to speak about, but there is conflict, and there is a legal matter covering that. So there is permission from the owners has not been given to that commercial operation to do that.
So, but from the city's perspective, that really doesn't involve the city because it is private property, so,
Yes, and they
The
don't
city can't
require,
really-
at this time in the beach
Yeah.
ordinance, they don't require a permit, so it's a private matter.
yeah.
Let me ask you this, because this came up at the PCI meeting. You know, PCI has a cabana zone, and it says even right in our comprehensive plan or land development code that, cabana can't be within 75 feet of a residential area when the district is next to a residential area. And then someone said, hey, but your chairs are right up to the property line of our condos. And they said, well, that's not our cabana zone. Well, because the cabana zone is where you sell alcohol.
Correct.
So what the hotel is doing is they have the area where they sell alcohol, but then they have the area where they rent chairs. So, actually, I wish Jennifer was here for this part, but they're renting chairs anywhere on their property. Or maybe they're even giving away chairs anywhere on the beach. So can anyone put chairs anywhere on the beach? I mean, I know I can bring my chair anywhere on the beach, at least anywhere, well, maybe not anywhere on the beach. But so in a way, is just someone from the Zamora carrying their own chair to somewhere they could go. You know what I'm getting at? That is there something like that where people are just carrying chairs anywhere? Or like, can these, maybe it's part of the ordinance again.
Well, going back to the PCI, that is their property. Their cabana zone is stipulated to begin 75 feet, like you say, so that's where they serve alcohol from. That is still their property, that extra area on the side. So they're free to put cabanas there,
Right.
but they just can't sell alcohol there, right?
Right, so then the BTR, if they're renting the chairs, the BTR would need to cover those chairs, if they're renting the chairs, but
Which
But otherwise-
it's for their guests,
Right.
right? So yes, that is how
That'd be it.
it operates. Yeah. The another purpose of that is because if they were to leave that area blank or empty, the public sees a void, and then the public wants to go ahead and set up all of their equipment there too. So it's also a means of identifying where the PCI property is, and that the public should really be in front of their property and not encroach upon the PCI property.
okay. That's the intent.
That's there. But as far as Zamora goes, I mean, they don't own any beachfront property, so I don't know the situation.
But you were told that there was an agreement or something?
Yeah, but that's only coming
Yeah.
from the person that's doing it.
Okay.
I wouldn't take that for, I would take this information as more accurate.
But as we have a conversation on the beach ordinance, we need to make sure we think through what commercial operations are on the beach, and that whatever permits are required are included in that use, as well as do they have use rights to the property that they're performing the operation on.
Okay.
Right. Looking at the agenda here, Mike was actually going to be here too for the walkover, so are we just going to,
No, I have the update on
Oh,
that
you-
from
that's
Mike.
okay.
I have an update from Mike.
all right.
So as far as the report on the beach renourishment activities, Mike did provide us with a link to Pinellas County. I have given you the copy of the latest, printed off the website, updated as of yesterday, because we know the dates have been changing and when that's due to commence. Dredging is now set to commence June 3rd. This link is also provided on our city website, but it's essentially the same information.
Okay.
Okay? So that should really be the place to go to about what's happening with regards to renourishment. Did you have some questions?
Yeah, the question I had is, I heard there used to be a really fun place to go behind Shell Key that got blocked off. Would this open that up again?
I believe that's the intention, to widen it and make it more, because it's just filling in, isn't it? Shell Key's getting.
Yeah, the Grand
larger and
Canal.
larger.
And then the other thing is, in the same way that all of this Pascagoula sand filled in that area, I noticed that Blind Pass is impassable for some boats now. And that's pretty obviously from Upham Beach. So how do we get the ball rolling? Know what? Well, I mean, I hit bottom, and didn't even make it to Blind Pass. So it's pretty clear to me that through a storm or whatever, that the sand is way higher than it used to be. And I'm pretty sure where it came from. So, I'm thinking that Upham Beach has gone off to Blind Pass, outside of Blind Pass. For whatever reason, that sand came from somewhere, and it's, sorry? Oh, well, I don't want to give it back to them. Okay.
That's where it's.
Okay. You think it came from there? All right.
Yeah,
So we have new sand for Upham.
Yeah.
Where we live is very dynamic. Longshore drift all the sand.
Always goes the
going
same way.
south,
Always goes the same way.
Heading south.
Okay,
Anyway, the Blind Pass is pretty much loaded, and
yeah. So maybe it's on the wish list of things to accomplish down the line, but this is the greater urgency, I think. So I'll read you what Mike Clark told us with regards to updates. During phase one, because you know this is being broken up into phase one and phase two. Phase two is the Army Corps of Engineers project. The county side is phase one. Particularly this.
We're talking about
the
renourishment
dredging,
stuff.
yes.
Okay.
Right? So during phase one, the beach will be closed from 1st to 8th Avenues, including the fishing pier. During phase two, the phase one beach and fishing pier will be reopened, and the beach from 8th to 22nd will be closed. Okay? It is turtle nesting and shorebird season, so specific protection measures are in place during the project. The County Commission will hear and vote on approval of the cost of the Phase 2 full nourishment on May 21st. Pending Army Corps of Engineers permit approval, which is expected, a full nourishment will be approved with completion sometime around September and October. Okay. That's all the information we have about renourishment. And then if we're going to skip to the dune walkovers,
Right.
he says the dune walkovers on 4th, 6th, and 7th are currently on hold until the nourishment is completed. There are no other projects planned for the beach at this time.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah?
Okay.
Okay. And Jennifer's not here. And John, you or Jay, are you not? Was that one of your,
that was not me.
that was you?
That was not me, Jay.
No, it was
No, the other John.
Oh, okay.
And so I edit this, and this came from just some experience I had. Ayaka did a nice drive. I got on her cart, and we went up and down. I did a ride along with the sheriff on our beach in a morning, up and down, and of course I walk it quite a bit. And one of the common denominators you see is a lot of people not knowing the code. I say know the code or ignoring it. That's why I resonated, Lisa, with your idea of how do we get more awareness across all beach users on the things they can do and the things they shouldn't do. And I don't want to be Debbie Downer and be the fun police, but there are just some basics. And how do we have a consistent message across all, the signage across the hotels, that, signage in there, no dogs, no alcohol unless you're in certain areas, no glass, stay off the dunes, fill in the holes, just the basics that we've hit there. How do we do this? And I spend a little bit of time out west skiing, and I've seen, different resort towns do a kind of joint campaign of know the ski code, so I'm stealing shamelessly from what I've seen before, but it's a common set of rules communicated in a common way across not just the ski resorts, but the hotels and some of the VBROs of know the code. And it's really a city-driven campaign of that. And that's really the idea, is how do we drive more awareness? I think beach ambassadors are a good idea. I know Sea Turtles try and do that, but what a consolidated effort from the city across all the stakeholders work, as I've seen it work in other types of activity, not beach, but ski. I've seen that in several different ski towns do the same thing. So that's really the concept. And it's, the problem we're trying to solve is quite easy, is get people to understand what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing.
So this discussion had come up several beach stewardship meetings before, where we discussed wanting to get how do we get our message across. And in conjunction with the chamber, Robin, we did produce those cards that you have in front of you.
Yep.
Right? And those were distributed to every possible business, hotel, along the beach here. That was the summary. I mean, you could add a list 10 foot long of things that you can't do on the beach, but they tried to summarize it, and the commonality there between all the beaches, and that was the effort that was produced for that. But a further campaign, something larger and bigger, you know, we do have a safety campaign that's coming up here about how to walk to the beach safely. You know, I don't know if that would be as far as no dogs on the beach, again, the hotels are aware, and I've had discussions with the hotels that while they may be a dog-friendly hotel, our beach is not dog-friendly unless they go to Dog Beach around the side, so, yeah.
Spring break aside, in my ride along with the sheriff, that's the number one issue is dogs on the beach, which we need to address dogs on the beach like that, but we should also celebrate that it's not crime or drugs or anything else, right? So I take it both ways. We still need to get dogs off the beach.
Right, and there's this deterrent, not a deterrent, but there is a stumbling block when it comes to dogs on the beach because everybody, you know, the service dog issue. Yeah, so that's where our difficult, unless the state really defines what we can do and what we can ask for in terms of proof for these things, it makes it extremely difficult to enforce.
Have we been able to address the other side of that also, where some hotels may have in the past been advertising that they were dog-friendly hotels?
They are dog-friendly.
And not warning, you know, we're a beachfront hotel and we're dog-friendly, and not making clear on their website that the dogs were not allowed on the beach? I think at one point you had expressed that concern. I don't know if
Right,
that's been
so
addressed.
as you know, most of the violations are people that I've found, well, there's two. There's the residents that know better, that completely ignore it, or there's the visitor that comes with their dog and that is not made aware by the hotel that the beach is not for their dog. So I have, as you know, I attend hotelier meetings, and I did mention it to them that, you know, the distinction here, they need to make their guests aware that the beach is not dog.
Or the guest feels entitled because they didn't find out till they got to the hotel.
Right, yeah.
We're drilling down on one of the issues of the code, and it's an important one. But you know, stepping back is there what I've seen other cities do in doing a unified campaign and advertising and constant signage, and get the hotels to put up the same sign, and you know, what is the same message?
Okay,
Well, something to consider from a.
You know, at every walkover, there is a huge sign that lists no alcohol, no dogs, no, I mean, at every walkover, we have a sign.
I would.
Say that nobody,
I've been walking them, and some of them unfortunately need some maintenance.
Yeah.
And a new sign put up. But I do, yeah, and then gets back to, does signs change behavior? But it's getting a campaign to drive it, or just because sign doesn't change behavior doesn't mean we shouldn't
Right.
think of new ones. And the Beach Ambassador program that was talked about before is a new idea that I think is something we should
I
consider.
would put my efforts behind, I have more faith in that ambassador program being more effective, especially if they can be out there on the beach
Yep.
more regularly. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's where I'd put my efforts, support in to get that message across.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Well,
I did
John, do you
receive
want to, the other John, go ahead.
Sorry, I did receive another speaker's card
Okay.
from Cindy Perry on
Okay.
sea level rise. I don't know if you want to hear this now.
Which item?
She just wrote sea level rise.
Go ahead. Just send it, go ahead. Mhm.
I just wanted to make you aware, John, you were asking about the fill issue. And even as we speak, right now, Treasure Island is having a meeting called Elevate Treasure Island. And I don't, is it possible to, oh, it doesn't show anything. I'll read it to you. What they have is a whole thing on sea level rise. And part of what's in there is they have a thing called terrain modification. And terrain modification is the purposeful inclusion of fill to elevate the ground beneath and around single-family, commercial, and public infrastructure projects. By altering the physical terrain of our city over time, we can reduce the impacts that sea level rise will have on our daily lives. Historically, fill material has not been permitted within the city. The transition away from no-fill policies requires a strategic approach to how fill is to be used. And then they have this terrain modification manual. I know the meeting that Treasure Island is having today is geared for engineers, contractors. I mean, basically, they're trying to prep the city for the future. I'm not aware of St. Pete Beach having a similar thing, but I know that this meeting is recorded and will be viewable later.
Great.
So I don't know the content, but I think this whole issue around fill needs to be revisited. It's kind of crazy to raise your seawall and not put anything behind it. You're just making a bathtub, or I don't know what you're doing. So I think it would be useful to look at what Treasure Island is doing and start getting sea level rise onto our agenda.
Thank you, yeah. In any situation, when the water's rising, you normally try to get up above it. Thank you.
Cindy, thanks for sharing that.
That's great.
Yep.
There was a conversation at last night's commission meeting about resiliency and getting a more focused
Exactly.
set of activities for the city, for the town on resiliency. And one of the ideas was actually hiring somebody, their full-time job would be resiliency. I personally agree with that. But I know it's being talked about more broadly.
Yeah. Good. Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, John, John, back to you again on the CO's giveaway.
Yeah, this is just a public announcement. If you didn't know, that Pinellas County will actually give you native plants to native plant material to place within your dunes, be it public or private. It's at no cost. All you have to do is show them where you want to put it. They'll come and make sure that it's appropriate, and then they will actually deliver to you sea oats, and sea oats primarily, but if you already have good coverage there, you can have a conversation with them to give you different types of native plants that will help grow deep and across to keep that sand in place. I just found out about it not too long ago. I'm actually working with Deb and Dune Savers on public property to find places to put new things there, but it's open to everyone. So if you have property, or if you know somebody that lives on the beach that wants to keep water off their property, this is the way to do it, is to plant native dune-friendly plants. So please pass the word.
Okay. All right. Ayako, you can help me with this. I think we've completed everything that we can today.
What do you think? Jennifer's coming back?
Yeah, I've asked her to come, see if she's available. I'm not sure she's in
Okay.
a meeting or so. But maybe I can comment on the shark fishing,
Yes.
which we had
Sure.
situation. They're called land-based shark fishing company. You can hire them to fish off the beach at night, and they were found here in Paso Grill, and the remnants of it were, they use rays as bait. So there were cut up rays on the beach. There was evidence there, and
They left their hatchet.
Yeah.
We saw the remnants of it.
and some pictures
Used
were
a hatchet
forwarded to me of them doing this. So I believe Jennifer, and by the way, this company, there are so many loopholes that they're actually permitted, they claim to be by FWC, but Dan, you said that you've checked with FWC and there are certain conditions that they were.
Absolutely. And
Yes.
what they are, you're to avoid shark fishing on a crowded beach or during times of high traffic times of the day.
Well, it's not.
And avoid shark fishing near swimmers or popular swimming areas. And they were set up right on Pass-A-Grille. People were swimming. It seemed like they were waiting for something, but it was all heavy-duty rigs. And I think they had 10 chairs out there, 5 or 6 people waiting for that. And it just really surprised me. And somebody told me that it was our commissioner had seen it a week before and had called FWC, and they said, no, it is legal, which is true, it is legal, but there's these kinds of guidelines for them to follow. And first of all, on our beach, you're not allowed to be out there at night, correct? On the public beaches. Is that true? So that would take
I think the language is you cannot be sleeping on the beach.
beach.
Yeah.
Okay. So you could be shark fishing.
You could be out on the beach just sitting there.
But on a public beach like that, especially the day we were out there were people everywhere.
Yeah.
And they had not gotten a permit from the city. Is that correct?
No, I mean, I don't issue fishing permits at all.
Yeah.
No, but as a commercial operation, like if you were doing a yoga class, they need to have a permit, so therefore if they're doing a fishing,
So that would be
in other words, this has been
future.
personal fishing. This was
Currently, they do
operation.
not. The new beach ordinance would
Oh, the old one doesn't
require-
have that?
That's my understanding.
Right.
That's why the new one that's coming, that we're going to spend some time on,
Okay.
defining what commercial operation is important for,
The ramps have it, but not the beach yet.
But I believe Jennifer did, because everybody was so disgusted by it, did get the sheriffs involved. And like I said, because of all the loopholes, there was really nothing that they could be cited on other than, you're soliciting on the beach. You've got your big flag waving there, advertising, your services and such. So I believe that they were possibly sanctioned on that.
And
So they may not want to come back.
And not a BTR needed either?
It's a one-off item, right? I mean, usually the BTRs are for resident businesses located right on the beach, so, in the city. So did you have a question about alcohol consumption and smoking? This was from,
I was wondering about where those items were right now with respect to our ordinance.
for alcohol consumption?
Alcohol consumption and smoking.
Okay, so no alcohol is allowed on the beach unless you're in a cabana area.
But we haven't crossed the smoking one yet, I don't think.
I think the state had put out that there was no smoking allowed on the beach.
It allows,
Unless it's
is it a, I thought it was cigars.
you can smoke a cigar.
unfiltered products.
You can smoke a
So,
cigar.
Cigars,
But it's up,
illegal.
it's up to the city to enforce that. It's not a statewide.
The state enabled
Yeah,
municipalities to
Beaches
set
and
laws
parks.
except for
right.
cigars, unfiltered cigars.
Again, that's, goes along with alcohol. It's extremely difficult
Mhm.
to enforce. I'm driving, I tell you, I drive along the beach and I can smell all kinds of strange odors. Where is that coming from exactly? I don't know. Who is it,
Well, I know that Treasure Island had put one in place. And of course, with that comes emptying out the little things where you put your cigarette butts before you cross over to the beach. So,
okay.
Are you seeing an issue? Are you seeing filters still or anything on the beach?
I talked to some guys that collected garbage, this was several years ago, and they said the worst thing on the beach was cigarette butts.
Right,
So,
a while back.
and
I'm just wondering if you're still seeing that.
So I walk up where the benches are. You see them all over, but they're more concentrated by the benches is where
Yeah.
I see them, but the beach maintenance team would have a better view on it.
Yeah.
They see it every day.
I don't see an overwhelming evidence of that. I would say plastic cups are more the issue, alcohol consumptions. trying to enforce that.
Okay.
And someone mentioned, since you mentioned the plastic cups, if we could get all the facilities to have their logo on the cups. So you
I
know
believe that is part of the conditional use of the cabana permit.
Cabana permits.
Yes, that they have to have logos on, identifiable logos on their cups.
So maybe just extending that to the beach front hotels, but I believe the beachfront hotels have uniquely identifiable cups anyway, even if their logos aren't there. But I don't know if it's really an issue, but
Yeah, so, but you know, the Paradise Grills also serve alcohol. Their plastic cups are clear, just clear plastic cups. So, they're everywhere. Yeah.
Okay.
In class, it's a written report, the beach report, and you could see what month is spring break, so
Yeah.
thank you for giving us that.
Those are great, Alco. They really are. See what's going on.
Thank you.
Yeah.
well, do we want to display what the beach report is so that the public can see it? Or, on the display or anything, or it's in the,
Part of the
It's in-
agenda.
it's in the agenda, it's in the agenda, yeah.
It's in the packet.
At the back, yep.
Yeah, the number of warnings drastically increased in the month of March.
Spring break.
Yes. For alcohol on the beach.
113 alcohol on the beach, 26 dogs, 4 off the leash, 3
And that's
electric
just due
bikes.
to increased presence on the beach, them noticing more.
Yeah.
4 sleepings.
Okay.
So even if we don't have, Jennifer on the beach ordinance status, I made some notes on things to think about for the ordinance. If you give me a second.
Is that something you could, as we do the workshop, is that something you could send out to us so we
Well-
could be prepared for it?
Yeah, so that's
From an agenda standpoint, we
That's
know
an-
that's coming.
That's an interesting point, because at one of the earlier meetings, I actually wrote a report to the beach ordinance workshop and mailed it off, and I was chastised by the city attorney, or by Matt, because he felt that it was a violation of the sunshine law, even though I said, please put this on the record. Then I said, well, let me present it to everyone, and he said that that was not appropriate, because then I was presenting and everyone else wasn't doing a presentation. I have a set of slides that I put together where I have photos of the different kinds of problems that I think that we want to think about to try to address. Of like, here's, to try to get people to think, because like some hotels, and these are the kind of things I wanted to try to talk about. Some hotels have an approach where a chair is bundled with the room, so it's free, and all the empty chairs sit there. Other hotels don't. And therefore, there's very few chairs sitting out there on the beach, and they only bring out the chairs when someone needs them. So, one of the complaints is that some hotels where the chairs are sitting out there empty are causing their guests to go off and sit elsewhere. Because a lot of them are even charging, and then they just have the chairs sitting out there. They have all these chairs sitting out and they're empty. So there's all these different formulas, and I'm having trouble finding my list, but so I have all these slides, and I'm thinking of just sending out this email again now, these slides, and just saying, to the city clerk and just asking them to distribute it as, on the record, because there are a number of, I think, thought-provoking things that people should just consider, because we have to rethink things also, because things have also, changed. One of the issues had been that originally we thought that there was an ordinance that required every hotel and everyone to bring everything in at night. And it turned out that was only on city property itself that had to come in at night. And there had been an offer to come up with a formula to figure out how many chairs should really be in each area. And I don't think that formula has been developed yet, and that still needs to be developed, I think, for the ordinance. And that's got into that whole discussion I was sort of covering before, where, do you include the volleyball or all these other things, or do you just say, hey, make sure you have enough chairs for your guests? But there's so many other different issues to cover.
Well, and I would suggest at this time, given the time, that we would want Jennifer and Matt here. And I would just suggest we're done. We're done.
Your attention spans, we covered covered your
We
attention.
covered everything. Yep.
Okay, that's fine.
That being said, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.